Now, it's no secret that I love video games. I love them enough to make these videos about them, but two genres especially grabbed my attention: shooters and racing games. And in the early 2000s, British developer Criterion Games managed to grab and hold on to my attention, one release after another. Their Burnout series was this high-octane arcade racer with incredible graphics, a banger soundtrack, and an unmatched sense of speed. I love these games even today, but after 5 straight entries across 5 different platforms, it was time for a change. So today, I ask you to join me on this journey through Criterion's first-person shooter, Black. Black released on February 28th, 2006 for the Xbox and PlayStation 2. It blew me away as a young gamer. I wasn't always a huge shooter fan. Sure, I had played Quake 64, GoldenEye, and Turok back in the N64 days, but I was never really into or exposed to that modern military setting. And Black was the first game that really sort of introduced me to that setting. So when the game begins, you're greeted to this cutscene with 2 mysterious characters. You play as a CIA operative named Jack Keller. As far as I can tell, Jack Keller did some messed up shit in the past and he got himself in hot water with the feds. So he has to cooperate with the interviewer and tell his story, which you play through. The entire game is played through flashbacks. Each mission is bookended by a new cutscene where new background information on each mission is given. I struggled to follow the story and sort of used my time during cutscenes to just sort of look at my phone, and that's never a good sign, you know, when a game isn't engaging enough to keep you interested, to keep your eyes glued to the screen. I don't usually do this for these videos, I promise. I normally keep my phone in another room when I do these videos, but I just found the dialogue and the presentation to be lacking in the cutscenes, especially when it's compared to the rest of the game, which is, they went above and beyond with the rest. I played the game shortly after release on the PS2, and I had never seen something quite like it, and I had no idea that the PlayStation 2 could put out such an impressive image. I decided to play the game for this video on the Xbox 360 via backwards compatibility, and again, I felt like I was playing an entirely different game. I'm always amazed to see the difference between multiplats on the PS2 versus the Xbox. Y'all were eating good. Y'all had it much better than us PS2 guys. But when you finally drop into the game, it wastes no time getting you familiar with the gameplay loop while offering little tooltips throughout to help you out. The first level is sort of like your tutorial, but it's not a drag. It's not a VR mission or a combat simulator. This is the real deal. You're in it. You start off with the Spaz 12 shotgun, which, by the way, sounds incredible, as do most of the guns in Black, but I'll talk about that later. You're informed the only way to open doors in Black is to blast them open. Yeah, you take that first shot at the door, and those particle effects when you hit metal look amazing. You know, it's crazy. I've never thought of opening doors in a video game as exciting or something to be praised, but Black ups the ante in every respect to where even a mundane task is fun and exciting. In addition, the sound of the shotgun going off just had my jaw on the floor. Black's sound design is top-notch for the time. I'm so used to playing these older games on this channel with flat stereo sound, sometimes even mono. You know that's not uncommon for the NES, SNES generation, even some Nintendo 64 games. But anyways, Black supports a few surround sound options that sounded amazing on my system. Like, I mean, it's obviously an older standard. It's not up to snuff with, you know, Atmos or whatever, but it sounds good. I liked it a lot. Weapons crack, explosions boom, glass shatters. Sometimes I just sit there and just rip off a few shots to listen to the sounds of the weapons. Black's fidelity is unmatched for the time and platform. There are just so many different objects in the environment to blow up and destroy. What really had me grinning from ear to ear, and as I'm reading this, were the buildings that you could partially collapse. Some buildings will have an enemy that maybe he's too hard to hit with the weapon you have, so there might be an explosive fuel tank nearby. Take a shot at that and watch the fireworks. I mean, sure, they were all scripted, but this is insanely impressive, even by today's standards. I also, for whatever reason, found it satisfying to shoot these mines and watch them explode in a line like dominoes falling. The environmental damage in Black is just pure insanity, but it's not without its faults. These scenes that I just mentioned are where the game typically does slow down, drop frames, whatever you want to call it. Now, these don't hurt the game or the gameplay usually, but it is noticeable. And even with that, I kind of liked it, even if it was unintentional on the devs' part. It sort of makes the explosions and the carnage seem more dramatic, if that makes any sense. Now, the PS2 version is much more susceptible to these drops, and they happen more frequently, even during times of gunfights. So, with with that said, I'm not sure I would recommend this version to you guys based on that alone. You might want to stick to the Xbox if you can. But moving along, Black, being a military shooter, has plenty of weapons for you to play around with, and almost all of them serve a purpose to the core gameplay. All of the weaponry is based on real weapons, so I just want to take a moment to highlight some of my favorites. The Spaz 12 I mentioned earlier is by far my favorite weapon. It has a punchy sound, a fair damage drop-off, and a tight spread. It's everything you want in an FPS shotgun, pretty much. Other standouts are the M249. This thing made me feel like Rambo, just unloading on the enemy as I walked towards them. The RPG launcher, of course, highlighted Black's destruction. I took down so many buildings with this thing. I just want to take a moment to highlight just how great these guns sound. Take a listen to this short montage I put together. It's so good. I love it. It made firing them feel so much more satisfying. In addition to the sound, I briefly mentioned how each weapon serves a purpose to the core gameplay, and I want to explain that a bit more. So, in Black, each weapon has a recoil pattern. The longer you fire it automatically, the wider the spread gets. So, depending on the weapon, it might have a wider spread than another. For example, an MP5 is going to have a wider spread than, say, an AK-47. You can't realistically expect to hit a distant target with an SMG, even if you just tap the trigger at them. I love this about Black. It gives each weapon a distinct purpose and forces you to switch weapons in and out of your arsenal. The 2-weapon limit further enforces this, forcing you to choose your playstyle as you enter the next combat arena. I mean, sure, you might have to backtrack to find the correct weapon for the situation, but I didn't mind it all too much. Black is structured in a pretty simple way, and it's a fairly straightforward game as a result. You're not hunting down key cards or searching for switches hidden in levels. No. Your goal is to get from A to B, killing whoever crosses your path. At the end of each level, a rundown is given showing you stats like how many optional objectives you completed, how many enemies you killed, how long it took to complete, etc. There is a stealth option in the game. Silencers are an option, but I felt that it was a bit undercooked. I also felt like it highlighted some of the less great features of Black, like the AI. The AI in Black are not the most intelligent, and that's sort of masked by the previously mentioned gunplay, visual effects, sound, etc. Now, the AI is acceptable in these scenarios because, I mean, you're not really paying attention to it, right? You're just they're just targets. They're just moving targets. Now, with stealth, you're not blowing up buildings, but instead you're crouch walking around, you're sneaking around, smacking people in the back of the head, and I just couldn't for the life of me find any enjoyment in this. I mean, the AI is spread out in a way that makes sneaking around nigh impossible. Once you're spotted by one, you're spotted by everybody on the map. This one-dimensional gameplay might make some people think that Black is boring or, it takes away from Black. I guess you could say that, but that's only if Black's primary balls-to-the-wall action wasn't so engaging. And on top of that, Black is a short game. It took me about 4.5 hours to complete the campaign on the normal difficulty. And I felt like that was a good thing because it didn't overstay its welcome. The final mission I felt was sort of starting to grate on me, but then the game ended and there you go. It was great. It was paced well. It didn't overstay its welcome and it did exactly what it intended to set out and do, create a cinematic first-person shooter on the PS2 and the Xbox. It allowed these two consoles to go out with a bang. The 360 had released the previous November and the PS3 was right around the corner. Criterion's games always push the envelope, and that's why it's so sad nowadays seeing that they're essentially an EA support studio. Black did eventually get a pseudo sequel in the form of Body Count, but I haven't played it and I knew it received a poor response when it launched back in 2011. Maybe I'll get a chance to play it one of these days. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in something like that. Black is just this fantastic game that you absolutely need to check out if you're into shooters or if you're just into high fidelity visuals and sound from this era. It's exciting, it's fun, it's engaging, and I recommend it. Go check it out. It's a cheap game these days. Go buy it. Seriously, check it out. Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video. I really do appreciate your support. If you have a game suggestion, as always, leave it in the comments and I'll check it out. I try to respond to every comment posted. While you wait for my next video, maybe you could check out my video on Cold Winter, another technically advanced shooter on the PS2. Or maybe you could watch my video on Pariah, a Halo clone that was practically unplayable on the Xbox. That's a good one, by the way. And on that note, have a good one, guys. Peace out.